Welcome back to another edition of Zero Block 30. Today we have 5 rounds in the magazine. Round number 1, young men. Nope, that's not it. That's something else. That's when I first read it, Kate, when I
That's
opened up
the only
sheet,
round, young men.
When I opened up the sheet, I thought that those were the rounds and I read them. I was like, what the fuck are we doing here? Like, God damn. Like, I understand that sometimes Kate might need a little guidance, but 4 rounds about poop to start off the show is a little heavy. So you'll find out what that's about. You'll find out about that in just a second. But we do have 5 rounds in our magazine. Round number 1, it's time to update the safety brief again. When you buy snake wine, which is also called habusaki, and let it sit on your counter for a full year, be careful when you open it, because there's one Chinese man who said that he got bitten by the snake as soon as he opened it, even though it had been on his counter for over a year. We'll see if we believe that or not. Round number 2, every couple of years, one of the branches updates their fitness report. Sorry, not fitness reports, but their fitness test. The Army does it about every 3 years. It seems like, just like their uniforms. The Marine Corps sticks with ours for a while. The Army's not. They have updated theirs once again, and there is lots of hullabaloo online about that. So we're going to talk about that. Round number 3. Another major from the Air Force was kicked out, but this time it was kicked out for stealing $820,000. That's a lot. He also did a little light stolen valor goof, and I would say it's a heavy stolen valor goof.
I would say pretty heavy.
And now he's looking at some possible jail time. And it was an Air Force Academy grad too. And he was actually listed. I read about him this morning, listed as the Academy graduate of the year, like for everybody in 2005. Like anybody that had ever graduated from there, he was the man of the year from 2005. Not a great
to show. You just don't know a guy.
You really don't know. Round number 4, there's some U.S. veterans that are headed to Ukraine, and there's also some that are heading back because the logistical support in Ukraine, turns out when you're not in a real unit, it's difficult. So a lot of people are finding out that those bombs, bullets, and Band-Aids just don't appear in your fucking cargo pocket. You actually need some S2, S1 bubbas in the background that are trying to do that, and some S6 folks as well. And finally, round number 5, after weeks of delivering bad news, some good news returns to the military world, and we are thrilled to share it with you. We're going to do that in round number 5. And all that today is going to be brought to you by our good friends at WhistlePig. If you haven't tried it yet, you're a fucking idiot, because the piggyback barrel aged craft cocktail in a can is so much better than any seltzer. It's crisp, it's refreshing, it's super bold and flavorful, and there's nothing out there like it. It's so bold and balanced. WhistlePig's taste. Oh, God damn it.
Weasel
on a more flavorful. You guys want to try it? I've seen the videos. If you guys want to try the ad reads, go ahead. With
the only thing I want to try. The only thing I want to try is a nice cold WhistlePig, my friend.
No, you should. I've been giving the wrong ad. Our copy is wrong. I got a listener was like, I've been trying over and over again. I felt like my ad copy was fucked up. Like the code wasn't working for you guys. And you were right. So if I forget who it was, but if you DM me again, I went back and looked for it. I couldn't find it. If you DM me again, since you got the actual promo code correct and corrected our ad copy, I'll buy you a case of WhistlePig. So just hit me back up. You corrected something for us, I'll hook you up as well. And if you're not that person, you could still get it at a good deal. Use ZBT 2022 to receive 10% off at whistlepigcans.com. Whistlepigcans.com. That's where you need to go. All right, let's get going with the actual show. Kate, you had something that you wanted to bring up, and it wasn't the rounds of the show, but it was in fact something different that was pressing on your mind.
No, remember on the Letterman show, he'd have like, here's the top 10 list or whatever. Yes. Here's the, I would like to start doing those for military stuff. This is probably one of my hairbrained. I say, I'm going to start doing this every week.
No, because you still do those travel itineraries for people at remote bases.
True. Actually, I still owe that kid his travel itinerary. I have it, but I've lost track of who was asking me. So reach out to me.
Do you remember where it was? Wasn't it like Minot, South Dakota, or North Dakota?
It was somewhere in like New Mexico.
Oh, yeah.
Buddy, if you're listening, I got it for you. Great stuff.
Desert heads are weird, right? Like people that really enjoy the desert. I was parked next to a parent pickup. I look over and I see this Toyota 4Runner that has like, it's almost like desert color, like a rust color orange. And they have these huge decals on the back that says the desert is calling. Who the fuck likes the desert?
Why would you ever want to be called by the desert?
Live there?
Again, as someone who enjoys previous life hallucinogenics, it's a neat spot.
Oh yeah, you almost did that in, where was it, Colorado? that you almost did a little bit of ecstasy goofing?
Ecstasy? What? No.
What? Mushrooms? What's in it?
Ecstasy and mushrooms. You're such a nerd. Very different things.
I know they're different things, but weren't you thinking about doing some MDMA goofing when we were in Colorado?
No.
Going to some like park that they have like all these different rock formations and shit.
Oh, the Garden of the Gods.
Yes.
The Garden of the Gods. But
weren't you thinking about doing some mushrooms or something there?
I was gonna eat just a weed truffle or something and go, but I wasn't.
Why are you acting offended? You talk about snorting nose beers. Like I'm the first person to bring up that you've done an illicit substance.
Like he's exposing this torrid backstory about you.
That was another lifetime.
It was 3 years ago. It wasn't even that long ago.
That was all before the Marine Corps.
Yeah, it's like, wait, hold on.
That was when we were
getting it wrong. Acid was after the Marine Corps, but before the baby. Okay.
I think it was all before the baby. So that's why I said,
yeah,
how old is he now? Before the baby. Happy birthday, Cash.
Well, I don't understand why you're acting offended. We all know that you've done a little light goofing, and you just said going to the desert with some experimental drugs would be a good time. I don't understand what we're doing here, but continue with your list, Kate.
Thank you. So what I wanted to do was I have this, you see online, it's a joke. You say blank is braver than the U.S. Marines. Mm-hmm. Okay. I have found 5 things that are braver than the U.S. Marines this week. Mm-hmm. Number 1, young fellas who wear thin gray sweatpants to Hooters.
Because they're boners? Is this really a thing that ladies enjoy men in gray sweatpants?
I'll tell you this.
I feel like I've seen it enough that they do.
It's got to be a thing. Like backward hat, like where your backward hat makes you look hotter. Although if I wear a backward hat, my wife tells me to turn it back around, I look like an idiot.
There's really no hiding what we're working with. And so it's nice to have it flipped the other way sometimes and see a fella in gray sweats. I remember I know some of my guy friends have talked about in high school when you wore the wrong pair of sweatpants and you get like called up in front of the class. So all of a sudden you have like a NARB, a no apparent reason bone doggy. And
it wasn't sweatpants that made it bad, Kate. It was church pants, like the super thin trousers. Because they'll feel kind of silky on you. And you never know, like maybe you're wearing some of your baseball underwear and next thing you know, your penis slips out the little slit in your underwear a little bit, starts rubbing on those silky pants. Next thing you know, your Sunday school teacher, Mrs. Johnson, brings you up to the front of the thing to describe what's going on with Noah and his ark. And you got a fucking boner.
Right. Exactly. That's what the braver than the U.S. Marines. Number 2, a person who poops in the apartment of the person they just started dating the first time they spend the night.
I don't think that's brave. I think that's flat out reckless.
Oh man.
Like, I don't know how when Annalise first came up to DC where I was living, and she stayed for like 3 or 4 days the first time that we like met in person. I had to like sneak out of bed at like 5 o'clock to go downstairs to go to the bathroom that was all like 3 stories down to shit. And I was so nervous because that bathroom had some issues. Like it wasn't flushing well all the time. And you never know what's going to happen. That first poop when somebody's at your house is awkward. You know who shamed me? First time visitor pooping?
Who?
This will be shocking to you. Big Cat.
Really?
Big Cat went over
Big Cat's house right away.
Yeah, right away. And we hadn't even known each other that long. This was like right when I first started working at Barstool.
All right, maybe that's a little different.
Because I had to stay in a hotel, and I've told this story before, but when I first started working at Barstool, I tried to do all of my travel based on my only other job experience, the Marine Corps. So whenever I was going up there, I would try to stay at the cheapest hotel possible. I was looking for under $100, and in Manhattan, that's fucking
good luck.
Tough.
No,
so
it doesn't exist.
I stayed at this
group
place.
Homes that you're staying in. Really?
What's it called? What's one of the Holland Tunnel? The Holland Tunnel Inn. And Big Cat found out about it. He's like, dude, you could just stay the last 2 days at my place and just come back after work with me, which is super nice of him. He didn't really know me that well at all. I get there, we have pizza, and it's one of those, we have pizza from one of those spots that Dave has given like a 9.5, 9.6. So it was fantastic pizza. So I clearly crushed the shit out of this pizza. Next thing you know, me, Lady Cat, and this was before Big Cat was a father of 2. It's me and Lady Cat sitting on the couch. I have to go to the bathroom. I'm like, oh, maybe I'm thinking about taking a shower. I might take a shower, guys, after this.
Oh,
pizza.
you tried to block off at a certain amount of time.
Big Cat comes from the couch and he goes up to the bathroom door. He's like, Hey, Chaps, what are you doing in there, man? You've been in there for a bit. And he knew I had diarrhea since Easter of 2007. I felt so uncomfortable. I immediately came out and apologized to Lady Cat.
Oh yeah, you can't do that. The first time I ever stayed, I went down to visit Pat in Austin, and he only had one bathroom, and it was attached to the bedroom. Okay, and I also didn't know, and his apartment didn't have heat or something like that. I guess it doesn't get that cold there, but it was a super old apartment. It had, you switched on the switch in the bathroom, and a heat lamp turned on above you.
Oh, for when you get out of the shower. Very nice.
Yeah. I didn't know that.
I have that in my bathroom, and it's so weird. It's like I think it was fancy in like 1988.
I sneak in there. I did this.
It's a very delayed feature.
I wait until the middle of the night. It's like 2:30 in the morning, and we had been out drinking. And I sneak in there, and I turn on the light, and I did not realize I had turned on the heat light too. So I'm sitting in there, I'm like, I was like fucking sweating, taking a shit. And it was.
It's fucking letting it growl.
I was like, this is fucking rough, man. Yeah, it was.
Somebody
terrible.
give me a leather strap I can bite onto.
Why is it so hot in here? Why am I so hot?
And I thought it was because I was belt nervous. To bite onto it.
Oh, quench the pain.
I felt braver than a U.S. Marine in that moment. Number 3.
My worst heated bath experience. So when I was in college, my buddy Eric, he was my roommate, and whenever we would always play basketball in the gym at the school. And one day I took a huge diarrhea dump and put this little space heater like that you would put if your feetsies are cold and you got a cubicle office. I put it directly over the top of the toilet, like with it open to heat it. And so
that's mean.
Yeah,
that's just cruel.
And turned it up on high because I knew he'd be home in like 2 hours and I wouldn't be back for another 5 or 6 because I had to work.
I hate that I'm laughing at this. I'm too old.
I mean, that's just some roommate pranks.
Just goofing. It's just a little slight goofing.
Yeah.
And so I put it on there. Funny. I put it on high, shut the bathroom door. Well, he brings his girlfriend back to the place. He's like, it fucking stinks in here, man. So he goes out and opens the door. His girlfriend Shauna is there too. And she's like, this is at my Christian school. And he tells me that she's like, Lord have mercy on my soul. As soon as the smell hits her, it's like I was making fucking soup.
It just hit her in the face.
Mm-hmm. Oh. We'll never say who, but we had a high profile guest on once who pooped a bed, who told us this story after the show. They're like, yeah, I pooped a bed once. It wasn't mine. I made the bed over the poop because I was embarrassed. And then the person who said
so mean that you're saying this, because this story is good based on who it is.
Yeah. Then the person whose bed it was brought a girl home. And when they went to get into the bed, there was just a turd under the covers.
I don't remember who this was.
You might not have been there.
Oh yeah, you might not have been there. Either way, we don't want to give it away. It was anyway. Number 3, people who don't wear their underwear when they're trying on bathing suits in Old Navy are braver than the U.S. Marines.
Oh, I'll never try on with underwear on. You got to go how you're gonna do. You got to practice how you play.
Right. Absolutely. And actually, at this point, I haven't tried underwear on in how many years because I just know the brands I use and I know my size, so I just buy them.
I'm talking about when you try swim trunks on.
Yeah, but it's different for ladies because we don't have that same kind of butter.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. Next. Oh. Next. I don't want to go anymore. I'm done.
No, this was a short-lived segment.
Keep going. This is good.
Women who finally poop a couple days after giving birth are braver than the U.S. Marines.
True.
Yeah.
It's very painful.
Women who don't care. Number 5, women who don't care about their butter.
This is when you know it's pretty bad, when he's making himself laugh.
This came to me because, so let me try to find it. This woman this morning sent me a picture because I used to blog all the vagina. Kate has her job here because of a vagina safe calzone.
True.
There's a woman that sent me a peanut butter sandwich from like a gas station. It looked exactly like a vagina, but there's also a little bit of grape jelly in there. Mm-hmm. And I just wrote back, I was like, that shit better not be chunky peanut butter. That's disgusting.
Yeah. What's on the mind?
All right, let's keep going.
Round number 1.
No. We got to finish.
There's a couple more.
These, I regret all these. The lady who waxed my pubes the other week, even though she was stunk at it, she was brand new. She was young. And to have to see what I was working with.
You did this on Twitter. Can you please explain what actually happened?
I went in to get waxed before Florida trip, so I could take photos at the beach with my son without worrying that someone on Twitter's gonna be like, see one of your pubes sticking out. You know what I mean? It's very stressful to roam the beach when you're worried about pubes popping out.
The things that you worry about are just so drastically different.
So I'm like, I better go get waxed for this trip if I'm gonna be chill. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had a good time. Okay. I walk in to the room. My normal lady cancels. I walk in. This girl said, "Oh, I just graduated from what is it, beauty school or whatever?
Beautician school, or yeah."
She looks so, she couldn't have been more than like 1920. She has on the back, hanging on the back of the door, a torn up old Avenged Sevenfold jacket. Okay. She's got like whatever. I was like, oh man. She does my face first. There's spider webs of wax going all across my face. She's getting parts of my bangs tangled up in it. I'm like, what the fuck is happening? And then she goes to do my vagina. She goes to do my vagina. When I tell you, there's certain parts you are not supposed to get wax on because they're not supposed to be ripped off your body.
Oh, this hurts.
I'll say it rhymes with claps, snaps, raps,
flaps.
You're talking flaps. Yeah. When I tell you,
she just being discreet here.
She pretty much just smoothed over me with wax like I was a Ken doll. Okay, like, and normally they use their other hand to brace your skin to make it less painful. She didn't. I don't know what she was doing with the other hand. She just yanked that sucker. I was wearing a bra, a tank top, a t-shirt, a hoodie. I sweat through every layer, through the paper on the table and to the other side. I was in so much pain. I finally said, you know what? I'm going to stop. She said, that's so funny. And I blamed it on myself. I was like, I'm too sensitive, I guess. She said, oh, the lady I had yesterday almost kicked me right in the face. She was sensitive too. And in my head, I'm like, no, you just suck at this so bad.
See, I feel you got to give her some constructive criticism.
I couldn't. I gave her a great tip. I left early.
I knew you were going to give him a good tip.
It was like leaving with half your beard still on.
You were straight out of 40-year-old virgin. It was a smiley face.
My vagina looked insane. It looked like insane.
Who's that dude that wears the clock all the time?
Oh,
Flavor Flav?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, let's move on to round number one.
That round, that didn't go as smoothly as I had seen in my head. Thought it was gonna be like a clean cut Letterman top 10.
Nope. All right,
let's move on. Need some work.
Let's move on to round number one. This one is because I mean, living in Japan, when I moved to Japan, seeing Habusaki snakes, I've said before, the only thing in the world that I'm legitimately terrified of, that even the thought of snakes like makes me nervous. I watched a TikTok the other day where this dude was going out to his shed for the first time since winter was over, and he was getting his lawnmower out and stuff. He pulled down where like the leaf catcher was, like stored up the top of his shed, pulled it down. Inside the bag there was like 7 or 8 pythons, like the reticulated pythons from Florida were like living in there, and there was a huge one in the back. I was like, honest to God, dude, like I'm not calling an exterminator. I'm calling the fire department because I'm burning that down. I'm not going in every nook and cranny and looking for where a snake could possibly be. That thing's just, we gotta do some thrash and burn.
You gotta start over.
Yeah. And I've never been one to like I know different cultures have like the tequila with the scorpion inside of it,
or worm or something.
Or tequila with the worm or whatever, and this stuff with a snake in it. But yes, a Chinese father had the shock of his life when a supposedly dead snake inside a jar of snake wine he had bought a year ago suddenly bit him. The man reportedly bought 3 jars of snake wine, believing that the drink would help cure his son, who'd been suffering from a chronic illness. Instead of opening the jars, the father let them marinate for about a year so that there would be enough medicinal properties. After the year-long marination, the man claims—
And I had no idea that you had to let a snake steep. I had no idea.
I didn't know that. I was unaware of that as well. After a year-long marination, the man claims he finally decided to open the jars and administer the medicine, only to find that all 3 of the venomous snakes came back to life before one of them bit him. After being rushed to the hospital, he was treated and reportedly survived the incident. Some experts say, and people believe that snake wine has a bunch of benefits that can cure rheumatism, arthritis, the flu. It's often prepared by fitting a snake in the jar of alcohol, usually rice wine, and leaving it there for a minute. Some experts say that what happened to the father was not entirely strange, since snakes can survive inside a jar of alcohol for 12 months without dying, especially if the lid is open for air to enter, some experts say. However, herpetologist Wolfgang, we have to ask Billy Football what he thinks of this. Herpetologist expert Wolfgang Wooster argued that what happened was biologically impossible. No snake can survive submerged in any kind of liquid in a bottle for more than an hour or so at a maximum, he told Newsweek. Snakes have no magical powers. They are made of flesh and bone like any other animal and require food, water, and oxygen to survive.
This is where I have an issue. I don't feel like you could just flat out say that snakes don't have magical powers. That's not something you could just say.
Why?
Well, there's been many documented cases of magical snakes, like the one from the book of Genesis, the old devil, the serpent in the book in the Garden of Eden. You're trying to tell me that thing's not magical? It could talk? Seems pretty magical to me, fellas. Number 2, St. Patrick. He could talk to all of them through his little flute thing that he has and get all those snakes out of Ireland. Get them all out of there. 3, I don't know if you know about this one, but it's from the Mesoamerican culture, and they had a feathered serpent that was a bird and rattlesnake mix, and they believe that it controlled the wind and the fire.
All right, you're convincing me. This could have really happened. All right, fair enough. That's fair enough. Okay, well, update the safety brief then. No snake wine. But I do believe if Marines got their hands on a bottle of snake wine in the smoke pit one night, they would eat the snake completely.
Dude, it happened all the time. Like legitimately in Japan, the habusaki, it's sold on the shelf at AFES, and people would bring it out and you take a shot or do whatever. It's like the first things that you do when you're a Marine and go to Okinawa, you buy a samurai sword and get some habusaki. Like those are the first 2 things you do.
The 2.
Oh, 3. You also buy a big fleece blanket that's a Marine Corps flag.
Oh, that's true.
So you can show everybody that you're motivated.
Well, update the safety brief. At least poke the snake a little first to make sure.
All right, let's move on to round number 2. We're going to get into the fitness test a little bit. Cons, what did the fitness test, whenever do you have to take the regular fitness test at West Point, or does your first one come? So it's a semester thing. Does that go into any grades or anything?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It factors into your physical grade for sure. And then if you fail it, you get put on all sort of restrictions too.
So let's go back before we get into what the changes are. Let's go to what it was for you, and Kate, what it was for you on the Marine Corps side of things, if you remember. We'll start with you. When you were in, what did the PT test look like?
It was pretty simple. It was 2 minutes, as many push-ups as you could do. And then you got like a 5 or 10 minute break. And then it was 2 minutes of as many sit-ups as you could do, 5 or 10 minute break, and then a 2 mile run. That was it. It was.
And how many push-ups is perfect score? Do you remember?
Oh gosh, I really would have to, it was something like 60 or maybe 60 or between 60 and 80 was push-ups, and sit-ups was a little bit less. And then a 2 mile run, a perfect score was like 13 minutes. I could be completely off on all of those.
I think it was 13:30 if my time from
sounds right.
Canine school was correct, because we used to have to monitor the other branches of service too. Kate, what about you? When you were in, what was your fitness test? Not the combat fitness test, just the regular one.
A 3 mile run and a perfect run, I think, was like 21 minutes or something like that for 3 miles. In the beginning, I could do that. And then you had to, for women, you had to do the bar hang. I think it's pull-ups now, but you had to do the bar hang. The flexed arm hang, which I don't know how long, but I remember I would
70 seconds.
I would sing "Build Me Up, Buttercup" in my head 3 times, and then
70 seconds is what you have to do.
In the 3 buttercups, and then 100 crunches.
What is it? What is a flex arm hang?
Oh,
that's not a common term.
It's when you're at the top of a pull-up, you pull yourself up, your chin's over the bar, and you have to stay there as long as you possibly can. Like pretend you're on a bridge and a railroad's and a train's coming, and you gotta hang over the side. That's what I would always think. And then I'd sing "Build Me Up, Buttercup," and then I was done.
And you were good until your arms completely went straight. Like even if you were kind of like just a little bit, it still counted. But
which is a little bullshit, but not so hard. And then crunches.
Crunches, yeah.
You had to do 100 or something, and the worst part was honest to God, trying not to fart. Because you get roasted, and your buddy always helped you out a little bit,
And then for the guys on the Marine Corps side, you had to do 3 mile run in 18 minutes, 20 pull-ups was a perfect score, and 100 crunches. So now that used to be what the baseline was, and there's always been issues. I think with PT test, there's always been issues because a lot of males will use it against the females that were serving and saying that their standards were easier. And the women would conversely say, we didn't fucking make the test. We just take the test. Like they didn't want to do a lot of the stuff that was easier. They wanted to be the same. And that was the Army initially, the Sergeant Major of the Army initially announced that was his goal as a Sergeant Major of the Army, was to have a test that applied not just to all genders, but to MOS specific, like job specific, because that does make sense. What somebody who's an 11 Bravo and infantryman, what they should be able to do physically should be different from somebody who works in supply. Like what you're going to be asked to do is different. Your physical standards at work are different. So do different things. Like supply, I could see it'd be important to have like over the head fucking medicine ball because you're doing that kind of stuff all the time. Maybe that doesn't necessarily apply to the infantry jobs out there. But let's go through with some of the things that are actually happening with the new regulations. Kate, what do we got?
Yeah, and this comes to us from Steve Bainon over at military.com.
Who's currently doing cold weather training in Alaska, by the way.
I saw that. They get to do some cool shit, a lot of those military reporters.
Well, he's doing it he's in the guard.
Oh shit. Never. Then it flips. Well, then it's not so cool. It kind of sucks that he's got to do that. You know, if you're a reporter, you get to just do the fun stuff.
He actually mentioned that while he's there in Alaska, that a lot of the command element is pissed because it's supposed to be super cold when they're doing this. They're wanting to see how the different systems operate in extreme cold. They were aiming for -60, -50 temperatures is what they wanted, and they only got like -10. So everybody was like super disappointed that it wasn't that cold. You went in fucking March. Why don't you try to go in the middle of January or early February?
Try again, goofballs.
Dummies.
It's a month training. Figure that out. Okay. So the Army unveiled its controversial new fitness test on Wednesday. And I love that whenever it's controversial. Any change to the fitness test in any branch always gets people so riled up. There's 3 things you don't talk about when you're drinking in the civilian world: religion, politics, money. In the military, it's probably pogues, women in combat roles, and fitness test changes.
True.
People just cannot
But every
handle it.
time you do, a veteran will be like,
Yeah.
New change in the fitness test? Back in my day.
Back in 72. Yeah. They definitely come out of the woodworks, and they are very angry on Facebook. Now Army leaders are ready to start measuring troops this October with the Army Combat Fitness Test, aka the ACFT, which is finally set in stone following numerous tweaks and modifications. I'm really proud.
Brave wording. Set in stone. Ain't nothing set in stone.
Set in stone. I'm really proud we're moving forward. We're there. We're doing it. Sergeant Major of the Army Michael Grinston said on Monday, "This is the test." And I believe he said it. This is the test.
Like the
He emphasized the a lot of E's on the end of that. The most significant changes to the 6-event ACFT is that it is no longer meant to prepare soldiers for combat, but instead it's just a general fitness assessment. And I like that because, again, I feel like most people picture the military as like everybody's about to go to war, shit's about to go down, when really like that's maybe 2% of the military. And the rest, we're kind of pushing a little bit of paperwork. We're goofing in the field sometimes, but it's not really like that for us. These are the 6 events, by the way, the new ones. The Leg Untuck, which I don't quite know what that is. I believe it's the opposite of a leg tuck.
Yeah, so that one you just have to, so what they want you to do, almost like whenever you're jumping off of a diving board, when you're doing the pencil, they want you to hold your hands on the pull-up bar and be as perfectly still top to bottom as long as you can to see if you won't give
you're fully untucked.
I don't know what the purpose
is.
Yeah,
it's harder. It's harder than you think.
Yeah.
The Russian Hornswoggle. Oh my God. I can't believe they're adding this to it, because when we were in the Marine Corps, those fucking destroyed me.
Yeah, this is one that was banned at boot camp along with the monkey fuckers. Did you guys do monkey fuckers cons?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hated them. Cursed them every time.
You like grab your ankles and you act like you're kind of humping a little bit. Yeah. They're the worst. But this one, what was it called?
It's worse. I'd say it's worse than a muskrat snoodler that we used to have to do.
Yeah, the Russian Hornswoggle is like where it's almost like a Turkish get-up, where you're laying on the ground and you grab a dumbbell and you put it over your head. But this time, instead of going back down to the same arm, you switch hands mid-repetition and then go back down, and you have to keep going without stopping. Like you go down and up, you have to be able to do 20 in a row.
And they make you a Hornswoggle while you do it.
Injured, yeah.
Right, it's absurd. 2-mile run, simple. Sideways demon sliders. Again, I can't believe they added these because those killed me. Deadlifts, and then Meg Ryan's ball busters.
Which one is that? I don't remember that one.
It's one of the ones you have to lift these giant balls up over your head, and then remember how David Bowie twirled them in the labyrinth?
Oh yeah,
it's that, but it's three huge balls.
Oh, okay.
I made these up.
You
got my goose. Anyway, It will also have different scoring standards for men and women across different age groups, in most cases lowering them following a congressionally mandated report from Rand Corporation, a DC-based think tank that found that nearly half of the service women could not pass either standards for the test. It's hard to read that sentence. I couldn't tell what that said. But yeah, nearly half of the services women could not pass earlier standards for the test.
Now, what do you think about that, Kate? Like if you look at something and you say this should be the standard, I would say that many folks would say that should be the standard whether or not they can pass it. Like if you have the standard and that's what you feel like looking at the data, looking at what the task is and what the job is, if that's the barometer of fitness that you meet, I don't think it should matter who the fuck fails.
Yeah, are you asking me why I think they were failing or why I think?
No, I'm just thinking like in terms of philosophy, do you think that that's good to reduce the standard? Like if they identified that standard as what they want as a physical fitness standard, and then they put it out there as a test and half are failing, instead of saying everybody needs to train in order to meet this standard, they're saying, look, people tried to train to meet the standard, they couldn't do it, so let's lower it. I'm not sure if that's the right answer. I don't know where you get around, but if you identify a certain plateau of where people need to be, it's very difficult to then back down and say, actually, that's not a good measure of fitness.
Yeah, I
it's
think
a bad look. Yeah.
With that, if they didn't change it and a lot of women were failing, it would affect them. Wouldn't it affect them getting promoted, and it would affect the Army as a whole?
Sure.
Down the line. So that
yes,
would
I think it would affect everyone. And what I'm saying is, I think on the surface, if you're looking at it just from X's and O's, what we need to do on paper, I don't think you adjust it. I think that you train to meet the standard, or you don't, and you no longer serve. I think those are the options. But it is difficult to say that too, because then you're looking at huge. I mean, if like the Army lost half of its women for physical fitness standards, like you would be fucked. Like you couldn't get over that.
I think it's part of a cultural shift that across all branches has been really slow. But I will say, and it wasn't that I wanted it that way, but there were times in the Marine Corps where I could feel that I wasn't being held to the same standard, like that less was expected of me than my male counterparts. And sometimes it's easy to be like, fine. All right. Well, if you're not going to make me do X, Y, Z, but I also could tell you, like, if you had told me my standards were higher and my standards were here, I would have worked my ass off to meet them. Like I would have tried my goddamn best and hardest to meet higher standards had I been given higher standards. So I don't know. And like women are doing the pull-ups and so I don't know. I think this is part of a shift that maybe there wasn't enough time. Maybe people didn't take it seriously. Maybe I don't know.
I think the biggest change that I would like to see, I'm just so tired of promotions being tied up with fitness as well. And I understand you have to have certain, but in the Marine Corps specifically, if you can shoot and you can run fast and PT well, you will get promoted quickly. Like for the first, until you reach the level of sergeant.
Even if you suck at leadership, even if you're a shitty leader, even if you're whatever, you're right.
Yeah. Like your day-to-day job, what you do, proficiency in your job matters so much less when you're a junior Marine, junior service member than your fitness scores and your ability to shoot and things like that. Like, I'm not sure if the other branches of the service are the same as shooting.
No, it's the same. But I would counter that and be devil's advocate and say that at our heart, regardless of what your job is, everybody's a soldier, everybody's a Marine. So you need to have, and I mean, part of being in the military is physical. And I'm not saying it should be a large part, to your point where they're saying like, oh, if you could just PT and shoot well, you should get promoted no matter what. But you can't just say like, all right, we're going to ignore that altogether. But I could see how you might say, all right, let's put less of an emphasis there and maybe find other areas that we can gauge on a person's ability to be a good Marine, good soldier, and how that affects their promotion.
And I understand what you're saying as far as everybody being a rifleman or everybody being a basic soldier and things like that. And that's a great slogan, but I don't feel like that is truthful. I mean, because like the physical standards that you're going to need to be able to go up and down mountains and like Kabul are going to be very different than what you need to do physically fitness wise in like the galley on a ship. Like they're just completely different.
No, I know, but I think you get into a very slippery slope if you just say like, oh, if you're working in the galley, you can be a shitbag physically because you don't really need to do that. You know,
well, you know, he's doing that. This is interesting because the Space Force has said that they aren't going to have a standardized test at all. As far as
that's interesting.
Goes.
I would be interested to see how that goes. I will say,
well, actually, while we're on that, I got a DM from someone in the Space Force who said, "Did you know the Space Force just phased out all PT tests of the Guardians?"
Yeah, that's where I got it too. Somebody told me the same thing.
They'll be taking diagnostic tests in April to baseline them, but after that, they're going to be using Fitbits that basically monitor the fitness. Yeah, they're going to be using Fitbits to be like,
and
hey,
I don't hate that
week?
because you know who else does that? Sports teams in the off season. A lot will have it in their contracts to wear a fitness monitor so we can see your heart rate. We can see all these stuff while you're working out in the off season, and they attach workout bonuses of like 200 grand for them to do that. So they can see everything that they need to do. I don't think that that's a bad idea either.
But I agree with Cons. It's a slippery slope though. And I do feel like having a fit military across the board, like every time a super unfit person in the military that goes viral, I do think it makes us look bad. Like that sounds shitty, but I do think it makes us look
but
bad.
it's true. It's the nature of the job. Yeah. It's the nature of the job. And when I looked at this, I kind of went back and forth. Initially, I was like, yeah, that makes sense that they would have a different scale for men and women because men and women biologically are just built differently. But then I started seeing some women with some feedback that said, especially women in combat roles now, combat arms roles. And I'm talking about the Army specifically, that I saw these examples where what you said earlier, chaps, where people would look at women differently if they couldn't meet the physical standard. Now they said, well, hey, standard's the same for everybody. And I met the standard or I exceeded the standard. So what's your gripe with me now? Now we're taking that away from them. Right. Which I think hurts. I think that's
roles. Spot on. I think you're absolutely right there. Like when the gender neutral test, it is an even playing field across the board. Because I mean, I remember when I was a young Lance Corporal, and I was thinking, I know for a fact, and every person with a functional brain knows that doing 18 or 19 pull-ups is more physically difficult than doing a flex arm hang for 60 seconds. Like it just flat out is. Like the numbers of male Marines who could do 20 pull-ups, it was like 6% of all Marines were doing 20 pull-ups on their physical fitness test, whereas like 65% of women were doing 70
we never had to do them in boot camp. We never had to ever do them. And so, and that's the thing, you have to train your body to do that.
And that score difference of getting 100 there versus 80 for if you do like 16 pull-ups or whatever, the scoring difference could be a year in time and grade before you get promoted. Like it could be huge.
Made a big difference for sure.
I'm just telling you, like, especially like when I think about, females can branch field artillery right now. And there's a lot of meatheads in the artillery branch. I'm saying that as a former artilleryman myself, who will look at females and think, wait, can she lift that 155 round? Why do I want
if that's
her
your
on
job,
my
you better be able to,
exactly. So that's my point. Like if you're going to do that job, meet the standard. And that's why I think now it might be detrimental to these females in combat arms, because they had that as a tool to say, screw you, pal. I passed the same test that you did, same standard as you. And now they're being set back a little bit. So it's interesting how I think I flip-flopped on that.
And the part that I think gets missed the most about in these talks is that the women want it to be hard too. Like they don't want easy shit. Like they want to do the hard stuff too. They're not bitching that it's too hard.
Depended on the day for me. Was I hungover?
Yeah.
No. Speaking of hungover, speaking of hungover, I do like the Army is adapting, because I saw one guy say like, oh, the days of doing PT tests, hungover, ripping a cig right before and maxing it out. Like 2 mile and 2 minutes of push-ups and sit-ups, you should be able to do that in your sleep. So I do like that they've adapted it to all these other events, but also like kind of like what you were saying about monitoring your fitness overall. Like you should just want to be in shape if you're in the military, from my perspective. And then you should be able to go do this test any day of the week without training and be able to knock it out no matter what, and at least meet the standards. Maybe not all year round can you score perfect, but you should be able to do this test at the drop of a hat.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that you don't know before joining the military. You don't know that you're going to spend a shit ton of time cleaning. You don't know how pain in the ass it's going to be to get your uniforms perfect, or how difficult it's going to be to leave your family in a drop of a bucket. You do know that you're going to be required to stay in shape. That's one that you should know.
It's one of the only things I knew that the stereotype that I thought going in, and that was correct. Like,
and you also think it's going to be harder physically than it is, like in a lot of ways as well. All right, that's it. Let's move on to round.
I rambled about the boring shit for too long. I had interesting shit.
Oh, what did you have?
Let's hear it.
Okay, guess which jobs for women had the highest pass rates?
Civil affairs, engineers, and Cav Scouts.
Correct. Guess the worst ones.
Oh,
medical field mechanics and cooks.
Yes, because you guys are reading it right off my damn sheet. And my thing for women, medical field, mechanics and cooks, these are all big smokers. You're outside the hospital ripping eat or between shifts. You're a mechanic. You got a cig dangling out of your mouth working on the
You
truck.
got a bucket full of coleslaw in front of you as a cook. What are you supposed to do? Not chug that down?
Not chug that down. So come on, that's expected. For men, the best was special forces. The worst was cooks.
One point I want to make about special forces. I mean, this makes total sense because these guys put an emphasis on their physical well-being and they don't just exactly. That's but that's my point. Whereas every unit should make physical well-being part of their job, not just like, hey, we got to train so everyone can pass the PT test.
Well, I think that's what part of this whole push is going to be for now.
If you go out there and you're like, damn it, guys, if we're going to make the best fucking meatball subs in the world, we better be able to sprint this next 200 meters out. Let's do it. The fate of lunch resides in your hand.
You're right. If I know the food's going to be, if I'm in the military and I see super out of shape cooks, I know the food's good.
Well, that are
I don't want them in shape.
Super huge. You know, you're going to have protein like that one jacked Army Sergeant First Class that works at the White House.
Looks like a pit bull. That guy.
Dude,
crazy.
Looks like a fucking Honda Sonata, like with a chef's hat on. He's huge.
That's true. Anyway, finally, and Sergeant Major Grinston, of course, people were going nuts on Twitter, being like, I hate it. And then people were posting memes about it. And Sergeant Major Grinston was retweeting a couple of them and was having fun with it, was answering people calmly and whatever. And I think he's been doing a really, really good job. Yeah. So anyway.
All right, let's move on to round number 3. We don't really need to do the Marine Corps fucking uniform updates. They put in the women can have ombre nails, and you can have, if you're a dude, you can have 3 inches of hair instead of 2 hair. Who cares? All right, let's move on to round number 3. A couple weeks ago, and really over the last couple of months, we've been giving you updates. Big
Stolen Valor year.
Big Stolen Valor year for sure. And it's from characters that you normally, I guess, wouldn't picture, like one that's leading a VFW and another who is an Air Force Academy grad. This story is, it's just another one where you're like, dude, you could have literally done anything. I mean, if you leave the Air Force after a 20-year career as a colonel with an Air Force Academy degree and you've performed honorably, like in that time, you could pretty much write your ticket to most jobs, like whenever you apply. Now, this dude is not going to be able to do that. Let's discuss why. Catherine, what do we got?
We got Kate on mute. Oh, Katie mute mouth over here. Lieutenant Colonel Brandon Bailey.
To be fair, Kate did say that she had a bunch of beans yesterday, so she might have to go.
Right. Thank you. Lieutenant Colonel Brandon. Talking farts again, folks. Talking
butter.
Lieutenant Colonel Lieutenant goddamn Colonel Brandon Bailey said he retired from the Air Force after nearly 20 years of distinguished service to his country, the combat tour in Afghanistan under his belt, and a Purple Heart and Bronze Star pinned to his chest. Bailey said he spent years as a search and rescue and battlefield medicine specialist. He said combat wounds caused a total and permanent disability that has stopped him from working following a medical discharge from the Air Force. What a brave guy. Except it's not true. For the past 2 years, Bailey has been the subject of a federal investigation into a complex web of financial and bankruptcy fraud that he spun over the course of a decade. And that one I didn't get to in time to ruin the federal investigation. Otherwise, I would have outed it much sooner, like Sarah Kavanaugh. The former
Katie
major
whistleblower.
Yeah, Katie whistleblower is over here. The former major was expelled from the Air Force following a 2010 court-martial conviction for illicit drug use and theft while stationed in Iraq. Hey, that's enlisted turf. Get out of here. The decision aimed to strip him of his pay, benefits, and access to the VA resources. Then, unbeknownst to the Air Force, the service continued sending him paychecks for 7 years, and so Bailey cashed in.
Which, honestly, this would be tough because you really never know if they would ever catch you. And if he wouldn't have done the other shit, it's possible that they don't. Right?
The VA was giving me married pay or whatever after and I didn't know it because I never checked, man. I just fucking live in La La Land.
But I'll tell you what, I mean, that's $120 a month. That's not fucking like $10,000.
This is very different. You're right.
That's not. I'm a colonel at 20 years. That's colonel 20-year pay is pretty fucking good.
Yeah, because all told, he stole about $1.5 million, including around $820,000 in pay and benefits from the Air Force all while getting paid for consulting and teaching jobs under false pretenses. So he was faking his resume too. He hustled the bankruptcy system and likely laundered money through his mother's bank account. These are my awards, mother, from Air Force. He never medically retired from the Air Force. At no point during his military service did Brandon LaRosse Bailey receive, great name, Brandon LaRosse Bailey.
I just looked it up, by the way, Kate. I just looked it up, how much money he made. So if he was 06 at 20 years, whenever he started getting these paychecks, base pay, not including anything else, $11,520 a month.
Dude,
I should have stayed in.
That's not one you'd be like, oh, I didn't notice. Like
Yeah.
you still were entitled to a
probably
VA
like an
check.
extra $25 a month or something.
Right.
Anyways, under a plea deal, the government plans to drop all but 2 of the 13 counts of misconduct against him. He pleaded guilty in June of 2021. His sentencing hearing is scheduled on Wednesday down in the Southern District of Alabama in Mobile. Federal lawyers recommend the court sentence Bailey to 3 years of supervised release to repay between $1.5 million and $3.5 million to those he defrauded, and to turn over his 4-bedroom, 3-bath house in Maine, his Ford F-150 pickup, several properties in Alabama, and the contents of 11 bank and investment accounts. So what happened to Bailey? The story picks up in 2008.
Before we go into that aspect, what do you think of the sentence? So essentially,
Slap on the wrist.
3 years of probation is essentially what it is.
And he'll never pay that all back. He's just going to be giving installments, I guess, or whatever. He'll be just fine. He's going to be fine. Nothing really is happening to him.
Because it's pretty deliberate, like theft and fraud. I'm surprised that because to me, like this, you see fucking Lance corporals and shit get worse punishment if they're doing something.
Of course, he's getting off
millions
fine.
of dollars. Come on, man.
Yeah, I should have seen this one coming. Well, how this all began back in 2008, the Major deployed to Joint Base Balad in Iraq in August of 2008, where he worked as the 332nd Operations Support Squadron's medical crew director. He led a 5-person crew of medical techs and nurses on transport missions, treating ailments from disease to battle wounds. In that job, he was responsible for keeping track of a box of supplies loaned from the pharmacy. Here's where it gets weird, my friends. His roommate in mid-October noticed him acting strangely and talking to non-existent people. He also witnessed Bailey draw a controlled substance into a syringe and inject himself in the arm. A subsequent search of the appellant's locker and nightstand revealed a Aero medical evacuation box, multiple empty vials of various narcotics, syringes, and needles stashed in the appellant's locker and nightstand. Bailey's urine tested positive for multiple controlled substances. Ahead of his court-martial, he admitted to wrongfully using, I'm going to power through these drug names, and if I get them wrong, don't judge me. Merpepridine, morphine, oxycodone, lorazepam, meroperidine, morphine.
It's basically
sulfate,
anything that's opiate
oxycodone,
related.
acetaminophen, diazepam, phenobarbital.
Nailed it.
Thank you.
Basically everything that was on Dope Sick.
Yes.
Yeah.
He continued stealing and doing the drugs. He claimed his actions were fairly attributable to injuries suffered while deployed, but the court said there's no evidence for that. And they did a mental review concluding he was totally sane. Ahead of a final ruling, Bailey acknowledged his Air Force career was over. I am doing well. Out of the Air Force, he wrote on Facebook in October of 2010, trying to figure out what to do with my life. Nearly 3 years later, the Air Force Court of Criminal Appeals denied his complaint that the decision to boot him from the service was too harsh. Again, you're an E2 and you smoke a little bit of spice one weekend when you're home on leave and you're fucked forever. And the audacity of this guy. Anyway, the Air Force formally separated him in 2013 with the officer equivalent of a dishonorable discharge. Bailey falsely portrayed himself as a retired Air Force nurse, a combat rescue officer, a veteran of a combat tour in Afghanistan, Purple Heart Medal recipient, among other things. Air Force records show he received 20 military awards and decorations during his service. They largely typical though, like ones that pretty much everybody gets. So.
I felt like, honestly, that was the rudest thing in the article to include that stuff. To be like,
they're just basic bitch medals.
Because Cons explained how difficult he doesn't have any personal awards.
Right.
Like
That's
to be
true.
a colonel in that fucking Air Force, well, they'll give you a
they'll throw you
medal
something
for
along
shitting.
the way. Yeah. You'll get something along the way in the course of 20 years that should amount to something in the personal realm. That's not just a bunch of the one participation ones that we all get. So that's kind of
because I even went
crazy.
through and looked at other articles to see if they did mention some of his, like, I didn't see any Air Force achievement or Air Force accommodation, which is I don't know how you get promoted to the rank of colonel without, I mean, just leaving spots, like leaving commands. You get end of
right.
tour
He should have
award.
gotten some sort of a commendation medal just for running a 5-person team, like without incident for 6 months or something like that.
And the Air Force is not holding back on the awards that they'll give you. They'll give you some fucking awards.
Definitely.
You'll see somebody graduate from Air Force boot camp with like 6 ribbons. it's sanity.
But you know what? Let me tell you something. As somebody who has transitioned out of the military into the civilian world and not somewhere like beyond just Barstool and somewhere you need an actual resume.
Somebody Kate worked at concessions.
So. Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's true. I'm sorry. No one really looks at your, short of, being a Medal of Honor recipient. I hate to say it, like an average civilian doesn't know what any of those awards are. So
I think the only
really
2,
matter.
Medal of Honor and Purple Heart. That's why I think all these Stolen Valor awards center around Purple Heart.
Kate would get got by a Bronze Star as well. If
I
was a civilian.
I think Bronze Star is another.
Star, maybe.
So I don't think anybody has any idea which is higher, Silver Star, or Bronze Star. They don't have any idea. Like the average civilian, and they probably think that Purple Heart is the highest one. Most folks, and it's not.
Bronze just sounds a little sexier.
2 things I'll say about this, gentlemen. Number 1, it's very easy. You see it all the time. Just Google doctors who get addicted to opioids because they're so readily accessible, and then obviously addiction takes over. So I have a sliver of sympathy for him there because he clearly has an addiction problem. And when it's just right in front of you and nobody will ever know, I can only imagine how much harder that makes it. But then number 2, just what an idiot, because you got $11K coming to you tax-free the rest of your life every month. And you have a 20-year career that you can fall back on. You can get what you said, chaps, the pick of the litter in terms of jobs. Just call up one of your Air Force Academy buddies and say like, hey, is your company hiring? And you'll get a job somewhere. So it's just so completely ridiculous that this guy
and that's decided your regular time. It's not fucking peanuts either.
He got dishonorable. Do you still get that when you get dishonorable?
No, I don't think so. You lose.
Well, he got dishonorably discharged. So.
Oh well.
Yeah, but they just didn't say that they took away his benefits.
True.
I don't know if they
kind of did. It said he was taking them when he didn't deserve them. It said it's like they never switched him to dishonorable, and he kept getting all his shit, so he didn't say anything.
Oh wait, I keep saying that he was a colonel, but he was actually a major, and was saying that he was a
major goofball.
He was saying that he was a colonel, and he is a major.
Bronze Star, more like cubic zirconium star.
Exactly right.
Over in Iraq doing high rocks.
Gold oak leaf as a major, more like fool's gold oak leaf as a major. All right, let's move on to round number 4, which is our update on Ukraine. And today that will be brought to you by our good friends at BetterHelp. If you need to talk to somebody, relationships are always at work. So don't rely on your significant other to be your therapist, because that is not great, because they are not a therapist unless they are a therapist. And still, I think that's against their oath and code of conduct. So don't use them. Use BetterHelp Online Therapy. They want to remind you to take care of your most important relationship that you have. That is the one that's with yourself. Whether it's hitting the gym, making time for your haircut, or even trying therapy or going out to get a wax job, invest some time in yourself to make sure that you're the right person that you need to be. BetterHelp is an online therapy that also offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera.
Getting your brain waxed.
It is kind of like getting your brain waxed. You're absolutely. Sometimes it can be. Sometimes it can be painful, but typically, whenever you leave, you're feeling a lot more smooth.
Smooth brain.
You don't want any of that. You don't want any brain butter, folks. Don't want that. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp, and our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/0. That's BETTERHELP.com/0. All right, let's move into round number 4. Ukraine. What do we got?
Ukraine. So this is a more, instead of reading off bullet points of what's happening lately, this story from Jeff Skogel at Task and Purpose. I fuck up his name every time. I wanted to focus on, we're talking about the troops that are going to U.S. veterans that are going over to Ukraine. And I've seen a couple accounts on Twitter so far of troops that have, keep calling them troops, but of veterans that have gone and then been like, oh, never mind, and left. So this tells one of those stories. After spending 13 hours hiking into enemy territory and back to retrieve the body of a Georgian soldier who'd been killed near Irpin, Ukraine, U.S. Army veteran Hugh Lay knew that this war was over. Not long after recovering the fallen soldier, Lay resigned from Ukraine's Legion of International Volunteers. My team was very supportive since they saw how deeply affected I was by recovering the body, he told Task and Purpose. Lay served as an M1 armor crewman from 2010 to 2017, during which he deployed to Afghanistan in 2012. In a previous story about surviving a Russian cruise missile attack on his training base, he asked to be identified by his first name, but now he's just coming out and telling everybody his story. On Monday evening, Lay was en route to Western Ukraine, along with wounded comrades and other international volunteers who had resigned. So there's a bunch of people leaving the front lines. He was leaving a war that he had just joined only 2 weeks ago. I do feel embarrassed to be leaving so soon after arriving, but have you ever seen anything so horrible and heartbreaking that you can't continue? It was like that for me, he said. His departure coincides.
Hold on. I think what you're saying right there is the exact reason why the Ukrainians will win this war. Because those guys that are leaving, everybody that joined the Foreign Legion is looking around and they're like, fuck no. You know why? Because they don't have the will to fight. Because the will to fight is not, it's not their people that's getting attacked. It's not their country getting attacked. And that's the exact reason why the Ukrainians are leaving. Are not leaving. And that is the reason why Russians are leaving in huge numbers, where up to 40,000 of their troops have been killed, injured, or deserted, or they're prisoners of war. It's that reason there. You have humanitarian disasters that normal people cannot look at unless there is something intense. It's like that scene in the Saw movies, you know, where you're essentially asking other people from other countries to come here and look at this room full of syringes and crawl through it to get to the keys to get you out of this room. That's essentially what's happening in Ukraine. It's beyond horrific. And anyone that doesn't have blood already in the game is like, fuck no. The Ukrainians aren't leaving. The Russians will before they will. It's a war of attrition. And those that have the actual will to fight are the ones that are going to win.
And some of the, you know, I'm sure some foreign fighters and stuff will stay, but for the most part, you're right, a lot are leaving. And there's a big upheaval going on with the International Legion, which was intended to allow foreigners to fight the Russians. But Task and Purpose correspondent Andrew Milburn has revealed that Ukraine abruptly discharged the first volunteers who signed up for the unit after mediocre performance in battle. And like you said, so they're not performing, like you said, Jeffs, to the level that the Ukrainian fighters are. Now Ukrainians are rethinking how they recruit foreigners by focusing on highly trained combat veterans like snipers. It's clear the vetting process for the International Legion leaves much to be desired. Lay said he was billeted with volunteers who made dubious claims about being former special operators, yet they lacked any semblance of discipline or professionalism. So people lying, maybe I can see even people claiming they were in the US military who never were and going over there and whatever.
Definitely.
They live the day high on amphetamines, testosterone, steroids, and who knows what other drugs they've smuggled into the war zone, they posted on Facebook. They essentially do whatever they want, and the Ukrainian military officers either allow it or are powerless to stop it. That was interesting to me. Why, if you have those issues, why would you smuggle that in and continue doing it? I don't know.
I think a lot of it comes from like this, like the type of drugs that they're doing. It's been a thing that's happened in combat for millennia, really. Like even if you go back to the Norse, like folks,
it pumps you up and keeps
like
you going. And
berserkers, like they used to get fucking amped up on amphetamines and stuff like that before they went too.
And he's not talking. He's talking about U.S. volunteers.
Yeah, I know.
U.S. volunteers. Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Oh,
like taking a little bump and then going into combat. I mean, how many times did you see people not nearly to the same degree, and it's not the same thing, but the effect can be the same before you're about to go do a high value target raid, smash and fucking rip it before you're going in.
Yeah.
Like just to be an even more intense person.
I think it fits along with what you're saying. Like for these guys, it's not life. It's a great adventure that they're on right now. Right. And so they're doing these things.
Oh, you go for the story. Yeah.
Right. Lay originally came to the war zone because he was unsure if he could live with himself if he didn't help Ukrainians. What he found was the mission to recover his fallen comrade's body was the toughest experience he ever faced. Today's mission was the one that broke me, he wrote on Facebook afterward. He and the other volunteers loaded up anti-tank mines and anti-armor missiles for the 8-kilometer hike to the Georgian soldiers' last fighting position. On the way, they encountered Russian soldiers. They didn't
want to... artillery question for cons. So if you're going up there and you have anti-armor missiles and some anti-tank missiles, how much would, and you're doing it on foot, how much would each one of those usually weigh?
Jesus. If they're just carrying one at a time?
Like, let's say a 155 round. How much is a one?
Oh, that's like round? Over 100 pounds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
That's a lot. Yeah. They passed the Russian soldiers who didn't want to fight and yelled glory to Ukraine without incident. They found the soldier and Lay wrote the man's name, passport number, and date of death on a piece of cardboard that he put with the body. They then had to drag the body back to friendly lines. So 8 kilometers dragging this body on an improvised plank. That was actually the hardest part, watching the look on everyone's faces as the body of our fallen made its way through friendly forces. They looked me in the eye, his blood staining my uniform while I helped carrying him this last part. Nothing was said between any of us, but the sentiment was profound and unexplainable. As we made it up the hill to the top of the bridge, the ambulance met us and we put him in a body bag and saluted the ambulance as it drove off. When the mission was over, Lay couldn't stop weeping for 10 minutes as he fought to regain his composure. His mission to help the Ukrainians was over now, too. In the time I've been in Ukraine, I survived cruise missile strikes, constant shelling from artillery, moving through hostile territory, cold down to my bones, sickness, hunger, and the anguish of recovering our war dead, he wrote on Facebook. I am tired in my bones. I'm not sure how much longer I'm going to stay in Ukraine, but I feel I've done my part and I am satisfied that it's more than most. And that was just 2 weeks in Ukraine. And I feel like part of me is like, I understand that he wanted to go help, but the amount of people doing this, it's almost like war tourism, I guess. And I commend him being open about it.
For sure.
But it's almost like war porn tourism where I feel like a lot of guys are going over, they're using up supplies, logistics. It takes a lot to get people to and from the battlefield, and then they're leaving after such a short time.
We talked about some of those issues whenever Moulton and that other Meyer, I think the congressman, did it
too. Went to Afghanistan.
When they went to Afghanistan, we talked
about
how
mucks
difficult
things
that
up
could
a little
be.
bit. So
I don't think this is the same when you're actually trying to fight. I feel like it is maybe the quintessential version of good initiative, bad judgment.
Yeah, that's what I felt in this particular case for him. I felt he was genuine but also still much.
But it's the same thing as any combat I've ever been involved with. Like when you have somebody that's new on the ground, that's never been in a firefight, they've never been in any actual battles, and they see the first person put into a body bag, loaded on a helicopter, or put it into the back of a 7-ton and on their way back to get draped with the flag. That is it's a worldview changer at that moment. Like when you first see that, it changes everything. And if a lot of these foreign fighters have been and they had experience, but they never had like frontline experience, I could see that being completely overwhelming. Like what you have your language gap, you don't have the supply and logistics, you don't have the support that you're used to, you don't have your battle buddies. It's all people that are brand new to you.
So that's
you're doing
what I was
incredibly
just thinking
difficult things. Tough.
I was just thinking about that. If I just showed up to a random unit and said, all right, guys, hey, I'm here to fight, they would look at me and think, who is this guy? Can we trust him? And I would just feel like an outsider the whole time. Not to mention, don't get me wrong, I feel horrible for what is going on in Ukraine. And I commend the Ukrainian folks for fighting as hard as they have. But I don't know that I have that inside of me to go over there and fight to the death, because I hate to say it, but they're not my countrymen, right? Does that make me a bad person that I could recognize that it is an atrocity, but at the same time not feel compelled to go over there myself?
No, I would say it definitely does not make you a bad person. And I would say one that you're getting closer to 40. You might feel differently when you were 22, 23, and you see that kind of a quote opportunity like come across you where you can go prove your mantle or whatever.
I do hope some badass snipers go over though.
Yeah, the Canadian dude that they said was dead is still alive, and he's taking pictures and shit, like the Canadian superstar sniper that they have over there.
Yeah. But
I don't think that it's bad to not want to go. I think it's weird to want to actively go to war, first of all. I think like when you know war is going on, I look at it how I viewed it when I was 24, 25. If you had told me when I was 24, 25 that I was leaving the Marine Corps and never went to combat, I would have been upset. Like that was the reason why I wanted to go. Now I realize how foolhardy that is to like try to go see some of the worst shit in human history and you want to witness that. That's what these people are seeing. And if you have an option to leave, I assume it's kind of like what happens at SEAL training. Whenever the first person that rings the bell, usually there's going to be several others shortly thereafter that ring the bell. But once one person is like, this is too much, it kind of opens the floodgates for
break
others.
The seal.
Yeah, and
you literally
carrying a body,
seal.
carrying a body back 8 kilometers, like
there was a quote I was just thinking about from General Sherman, and the quote is, "It is only those who have never fired a shot nor heard the shrieks and groans of the wounded who cry aloud for blood, more vengeance, more desolation. War is hell." And I think that's extremely true. That maybe some of these people are just hungry for something that they don't realize what they're hungry for.
And I'm sure that there is definitely folks that are doing it for the right reasons because they see Ukrainians suffering and you want to go help. There's definitely those people.
Yeah, for sure.
And those people are with Team Rubicon. There's a lot of people that I follow from Team Rubicon that are over there that are doing great things. If you want to donate to an American organization that's doing wonderful things for the people of Ukraine and trying to get, and they do not just in Ukraine, but anytime that there's a natural disaster, basically in the world, they're about helping out. So we support them too. All right, let's move on to round number 5, which is going to be presented by our good friends at Roman. If you haven't had sex with Roman on your penis, you should, because Roman swipes are a clinically proven way to last longer in bed. They're effective, easy to use, and fast acting, but they don't require a prescription. Roman can send you swipes in a discreet, unmarked package, and each one of those swipes is small enough to hide in your wallet or wherever you need it, to include your coin purse. Kate, you got a coin purse?
Is it talking about pussy?
I'm not. Like at all. I said wallet, and then I said, you have a coin purse. And then I guess
you've never heard a vagina called a coin purse?
No, I have. I just thought that because I was saying wallet, and then I went coin purse, and you had thought on the podcast that I would ask you at any point in our lives if you have a vagina.
I have to tell you, I played it cool, but I was shocked.
There's a lot of things that I would ask. Whether or not you have a vagina is not one.
I was like, I just talked about it at the top of the show.
Also, I feel like coin purses are a very dated thing. I think like unless you're 80 years old, you don't carry a coin purse.
I feel like Kate owes me an apology, honest to God.
I am sorry. That was, I knew you wouldn't do that, but it caught me off guard.
GetRoman.com/ZBT to get your first month of swipes for just $5, or you can choose a monthly plan. That's GetRoman.com/ZBT. All right, let's move into round number 5. This is going to be short. I was furious for the fellow service members because in 2019, if you aren't aware, 2019, all MREs that were made after 2019, they did not have the beloved bottle of Tabasco sauce. And that is a staple of MREs. There's not
so cute. It's like
it's so adorable.
Like a teeny tiny little baby bottle that and it's like a minute, like how people collect miniatures.
How do you open them?
With your teeth.
With your teeth.
Bingo.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, personally, I never use them. I'm not a hot sauce guy at all. So I didn't use them, but I would trade them. Like that's
just so cute.
Mm-hmm. I wish that we lived in a time where they used to have like Lucy's or a half a pack of cigarettes at MREs too. That would be
pal. You and me both.
Dope. Like to just be honestly, some of my favorite combat times would be sitting on a roof at night doing like Overwatch security with one of the other guys and fucking ripping heaters underneath camo netting so you couldn't see the amber like going. Like
smoking was my incredible. Best time in the course. Anytime I was smoking was a good time, and it was.
It's like on The Office when Kelly's like, I'm going to pick up smoking so I can have 15-minute breaks every single hour. Yeah, dude. Like that's why you smoke in the service, so you can go to the smoke pit. That's where you find out all the gossip, everything that you need to have, and you can if you had Tabasco, where you can have a little wheat snack bread with some Tabasco on it and crush a couple heaters. Buddy, that's a good little Thursday.
That's living.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So basically, this entire round is that so what happened? I'm not even going to read off the sheet. I'll just say what happened essentially. So in 2019, the product that they use, because it's not like a glass bottle and it's not typical plastic. I think one of the examples of military equipment that I go back to is a scene in the West Wing where they have, thank you for that huge yawn, Kate. This is also a video podcast. My God, just all over the place.
No bearing.
So disgusting. So they on the West Wing, they have this lawyer that
one
comes
in my coin purse.
Right, exactly right. Yawn into that bad boy. Yeah. Bad boy. So we have the lawyer on the West Wing was talking about why it's $6,000 ashtray needs to be a thing, and it's because it breaks cleanly in 3 separate pieces if you are in a submarine, instead of it slamming against the wall and shattering into 1,000 pieces. Next thing you know, you have people in a submarine with glass shards in their eyes. So we pay $6,000 for an ashtray when in fact they could have just outlawed smoking and not needed that $6,000 ashtray. That would have been another example they had. But there's a certain material that they needed. The material cost was too much. They said this is too much. So many troops complained about not having Tabasco in the MRE that the DOD was like, you know what? We're going to up our MRE budget and we're going to give them these fucking little things of Tabasco. I feel like that's
yeah.
a win-win. Like the DOD did the right thing. Everybody wants Tabasco. Bring Tabasco back.
I agree.
I love it. I love it.
Hell yeah.
Did
Very
you guys
nice.
know the founder of Tabasco, McElhenney? He was just some huge oil baron that just loved hot sauces. So he decided to create
was
his
he
own
a
hot
Texas
sauce.
guy? I mean, that's what
No, New Orleans area, right?
Oh, really?
Yes.
You can go to the
yeah.
factory. It's like in the bayou on an island. Like it's out there.
Yeah.
Because that's a huge Texas thing. If you're a rich Texas white guy, you almost automatically have to start some type of hot sauce or
Hot
salsa
sauce
business.
company, right?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Louisiana.
All right, let's move on to save rounds and alibis. Nicholas, we'll start with you, pal.
Yeah, save rounds is just just going to keep pushing that YouTube, guys. Really want to get us to 10K on YouTube. So please head over there and subscribe. Check out our shorts. Leave a comment. Thank you so much.
YouTube, 0 blog 30.
All right,
Subscribe.
Cons,
Subscribe.
we're like an hour in. Let's get your wedding update. What do we got?
It was fantastic. It really was.
All right, Kate, what do you got?
It was so beautiful.
Suck it.
If anything, I should bring Alex in because she was the person who made it perfect. She planned every tiny little detail down to something as simple as the fact that we actually, we kind of came up with this ourselves, but then she put it into practice and made it happen. Each table number, instead of just table numbers, we had a little quote from a movie that was, one of our favorite movies that we felt like described the people at the table. Table 9, I think, being the best one about the wedding singer quote.
Freaks over at table 9
was all the people from Barcelona.
That was my
which
table.
Was good. Yeah. So that was
a little
fantastic.
disappointed. No Few Good Men quote on any of the cards.
Well, that's more one of my favorites, not one of our favorites. And that's what marriage is all about, chaps, as you know, is compromise and doing
Dude,
things
you should have had at your own table. You should have, because you're such a party guy and we're out there for every single song and dancing your ass off. You should have had the How More quote. I can promise you that I will be the first off on the dance floor and the last man off the dance floor.
That
You
would
should
have
have.
been so perfect. Wow. That's a huge miss. I guess, I don't know. So
he did lead the party. If you're looking for an officer to lead a party, he is the one. He kept it going. So
yeah, so it was unbelievable. I won't really go into much more than that. Just that I'm just so thankful that everything worked out. I will say one thing. For someone that's had a lot of responsibility over the course of my life, I've never fully felt like an adult for whatever reason, and I don't know whether that's something that is just something I had to overcome or whatever. But as soon as I started wearing a wedding ring, I kind of now really feel like an adult.
Look
for
at your
some
little
reason.
wedding ring. Oh,
Yeah,
he's
so-
grown.
I'm surprised you went with gold. The yellow gold guy. I like it.
I like
Yeah.
it. Honestly, I like
Classic.
it. Classic.
So
Perfect.
I got mine as
that's
wood.
it. Oh, that's perfect for you. And then the last thing I'll say,
I just have a baby
Officer's
dad.
Corner. Officer's Corner. Lesson learned from Monday, that even as somebody who knows right from wrong and knows when you should do something, never make assumptions. I made the assumption that everybody knew I would still be traveling back, and I should have communicated that better. So that was on me. I apologize to the listeners for Monday. You should never make assumptions, even when SOPs are in place for times to record. You should still never make an assumption. So I apologize.
Catherine.
I'll allow it as the person who screws up most on this show. I personally, I was reveling.
Kay was texting me on the side, like, can you believe this motherfucker?
I was like, this piece of shit. I would never do anything like that. Shout out. I had the woman from the Space Force who was like, here's what's going on with our fitness test. I had messaged her back at the time and said, oh, can I say your name or whatever? And I didn't hear back from her before the show, so I kept it anonymous. But she said, I would love that. So Danielle Riggins, come on down. Thank you, Danielle Riggins, for the inside.
Yeah, she gave me
Baseball.
a good little scoop too. Where's my phone at? So she gave me a scoop about, I asked her opinion because I posted it on YouTube on the shorts that we're doing. Like, what do you guys think about, what do you think about the new fitness test? And she actually reached out to me about the Space Force and gave some pretty good insight about how she thought the Space Force fitness test would go. She said, I think they will give it to, I think as far as the fitness watches go, like that they have to wear the fitness watch to monitor everything. I think they could just put it on their spouse or on their dog and have very little active life if they really wanted to. But I also think about having the government monitor your health long-term like that, it's going to affect VA claims in the future. There's just no real way to track that. And they're going to be using the Ring or Fitbit, honestly, because they work in secure areas. They can't wear the rings at work. So it's only a portion of their time that they're going to be monitored. But I do think allowing the government to monitor your health on a daily basis through the system like that is dangerous.
I agree.
Yeah, I could see that. I agree. Like not wanting to have all
overreaching a little bit.
Yeah, very much an overreach. And for like the folks that didn't want the vaccine, you got to be standing up against this thing.
Yeah, you do.
Big time.
Also, too, can they tell like, wow, that E4 was just in a porta-john for 10 minutes, but his Fitbit's going crazy in there. What the hell?
Why are you working out at 11:44 at nighttime for for 4 minutes?
Just
Why are you working out?
Of your barracks room? What?
Huh. We noticed that your geolocation puts you in the broom closet, and your heartbeat was 118 a minute. What's going on there?
What's going on there? Huh.
And we also had a Wi-Fi usage spike.
Weird.
Anyways, so anything else, Kate?
No, that's it for me. Shout out Danielle.
All right. So I wanted to mention something. I've been watching a lot of the Supreme Court questions for Ketanji Brown Jackson. And I think that I saw this chart where they put in all the different boxes of what the Supreme Court justices have to do in order to be qualified to be a Supreme Court justice. Every single person that's on the court has gone to an Ivy League law school. Every single person, for the most part, has clerked for another Supreme Court justice. She is the only person in the history of the Supreme Court that has done it at every level of law, like where she's gone and clerked for a Supreme Court justice. She's been a public defender. She has been on the bench at the DC Court of Appeals. She's done every possible thing that she can. And I look at something like that and I'm like, I could never be smart enough or qualified or care enough to do something like that, to devote your entire life to get to that point where you're getting questioned by senators and they ask you ridiculous fucking questions is insane. There's a lot of the political discourse over the last couple of years has been wild and nutty. And that's not just Republicans, it's Democrats have our group of crazies as well. And I was very impressed with, I don't know how to say his last name. It's one of those names that I always fuck up because I read it first and now I'm not sure. Is it Ben Sasse or Ben Sass? I think it's Sass.
I always read it Sass.
I don't know. I read it Sass too.
All right. So Ben Sass has this.
I think it's Sasse.
It's not that. So Ben Sasse has the senator from Nebraska has a 2-minute speech that he did that talked about the decorum in the Senate and how we are as a serious government. And I thought that it was fantastic. Here's the Republican senator from Nebraska.
Because I think I differ from a lot of my colleagues on this who are advocates for cameras in the courtroom. I get their position. That transparency is a virtue. Transparency is a good thing. I also believe that pen and pad can facilitate a whole heck of a lot of transparency just fine. And it's healthy for Americans to recognize the second and third and fourth order effects of cameras. A huge part of why this institution doesn't work well is because we have cameras everywhere. Cameras change human behavior. We know this. You don't have the same kinds of conversation over the dinner table with your family when you're wrestling through issues and apologizing for something and saying, I said this before, but maybe I should modify what I said. My tone was jerky. My substance didn't account for your position. There's a whole bunch of things that humans can do if they're not immediately mindful of some distant camera audience that they might be trying to create a soundbite for. And Instagram can be useful for some small things, but for intellectual discourse, it is not a friend. And I think we should recognize that the jackassery we often see around here is partly because of people mugging for short-term camera opportunities. And it is definitely a second and third and fourth order effect that the court should think through before it has advocates in there who are not only trying to persuade you 9 justices, but also trying to get on cable that night or create a viral video. So for what it's worth, I hope that the court doesn't respond to some well-meaning impulses from the Congress to push for cameras in the courtroom, but also some bullying. And there are ways that you can get to a lot of transparency. Audio recordings are increasingly released from the Supreme Court in timelier fashion over the past few decades. So for what it's worth, I'm glad that you on the court are making that decision, and I hope it isn't made for you by the Congress.
And I say that I think that it's fantastic because there's certain people that you know that they're eminently qualified and that you have to make these sound bites because that's what American political discourse has become. It's become just a quote tweet society where you want to quote tweet everything, get everything the way that you want to say it so you can be on Fox News or MSNBC or CNN.
Half the questions that they asked, that some of the
nonsensical
people asked her, were specifically for their own social media later. Like
about a child's book and like that at the
right.
where she's on the board. It's just fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
And then on a completely different note, Senator Cory Booker, who is the senator from New Jersey, he lives in Newark. He came out and he was talking about the perspective from being a Black American and what this nomination meant to him. So this is kind of three parts. The first part, I think all three little sections that we're going to play are amazing because this was right after you had some serious grandstanding about different issues surrounding the future justice. Here he is talking about not being able to steal my joy and what an important moment this is for Black Americans.
And I'm telling you right now, I'm not letting anybody in the Senate steal my joy. I told you this at the beginning. I'm embarrassed. It happened earlier today. I just look at you and I start getting full of emotion. I'm jogging this morning and I'm at the end of the block I live on. And I get terrified because I put my music on loud when I'm jogging, trying to block out the noise of the heart attack I'm having. And this woman comes up on me, practically tackles me, an African-American woman. And the look on her eyes, she just wanted to touch me because I'm sitting so close to you and tell me what it meant to her to watch you sitting where you're sitting. And you did not get there because of some left-wing agenda? You didn't get here because of some dark money groups? You got here how every Black woman in America who's gotten anywhere has done, by being, like Ginger Rogers said, I did everything Fred Astaire did, but backwards in heels. And so I'm just sitting here saying, nobody's stealing my joy. Nobody's going to make me angry, especially not people that are called in a conservative magazine demagogic for what they're bringing up that just doesn't hold water. I'm not going to let my joy be stolen because I know you and we appreciate something that we get that a lot of my colleagues don't. I know Tim Scott does. When I first came to this place, I was the fourth Black person ever popularly elected to the United States Senate. And I still remember a lot of mixed people, white folks, Black folks work here, but at night when people are in line to come in to clean this place, the percentage of minorities shift a lot. And so I'm walking here, first week I'm here, and somebody who's been here for decades doing the urgent work of the Senate, but it's the unglamorous work that goes on no matter who's in offices. The guy comes up to me, all he wants to say, I can tell, is, I'm so happy you're here. But he comes up and he can't get the words out. And this man, my elder, starts crying. And I just hugged him. And he just kept telling me, it is so good to see you here. It's so good to see you here. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
I thought that was beautiful that even in the middle of everything, he's like, I'm going to push everything to the side. I'm not going to ask you any questions. I'm just going to essentially tell you what your nomination means to me. And that's how he used his questioning. And he does it so perfectly here. And this is why he's saying that he's not going to allow anyone to steal his joy about what's going on.
As Langston Hughes wrote, oh, let America be America again. The land that never has been yet, but yet must be the land where everyone is free. Oh, yes, I say it plain, America never was America to me, but I swear this oath, America will be. That is the story of how you got to this desk, you and I and everyone here, generations of folk who came here and said, America, I'm Irish. You may say, no, Irish or dogs need to fly, but I'm going to show this country that I can be free here. I can make this country love me as much as I love it. Chinese Americans first forced into near slave labor, building our railroads, connecting our country, saw the ugliest of America, but they were going to build their home here and say, America, you may not love me yet, but I'm going to make this nation live up to its promise and hope. LGBTQ Americans, from Stonewall women to Seneca, hidden figures who didn't even get their play until some Hollywood movie finally talked about them and how they were critical for us defying gravity. All of these people loved America. And so you faced insults here that were shocking to me. Well, actually not shocking. But you are here because of that kind of love. And nobody's taken this away from me. So you got 5 more folk to go through. 5 more of us. And then you can sit back and let us have all the debates. And I'm going to tell you, it's going to be a well-charted Senate floor because it's not going to stop. They're going to accuse you of this and that. Heck, in honor of your person who shares your birthday, you might be called a communist. But don't worry, my sister. Don't worry. God has got you. And how do I know that? Because you're here. And I know what it's taken for you to sit in that seat.
And finally, the last clip that I want to play, here it is.
I thought about her and how she looked up. She kept looking up. No matter what they did to her, she never stopped looking up. And that star, it was a harbinger of hope. Today, you're my star. You are my harbinger of hope. This country is getting better and better and better. And when that final vote happens and you ascend onto the highest court in the land, I'm going to rejoice. And I'm going to tell you right now, the greatest country in the world, the United States of America, will be better because of you. Thank you.
I think that those types of words are incredibly important because it shows us a person who's been in the Senate for 2 terms, who was on the stage in the presidential process of trying to become the next president of the United States, is still going off and being clearly emotional about how much representation matters. And I think that a lot of times for people that look like Connor and I, we can look at things and say, well, why does representation matter? Because we've
people
always
with small
had
ankles?
that. We've always had that representation, and they don't. Black people have never had.
Take it for granted.
Right. There's never been a Black woman on the Supreme Court, and to have that representation, the way that the Black community looks at the Black woman, to never have that representation on the Black court or on the Supreme Court, to me it shows how valuable that is, because they see the Black mother and how much the Black mother does in that community and how strong she is. We need more Black women on the court. So I'm glad that we'll have one. It's on the retreat.